Welcome to the Spirit Vox. I'm your host, and tonight we don't do fiction. Every story you're about to hear was submitted by a real person. Names and locations have been changed to protect them, but what happened, that part is real. Stay with me.
The Spirit Vox, it's alive.
In 2004, a family moved into a rental house on the west side of Millbrook City. 3 floors, quiet neighborhood, affordable rent. The previous owners, a wealthy family, had left the country after the wife died. They locked the house, handed it to a property manager, and never came back. The family who moved in, a mother, her teenage son Tyler, and 2 younger siblings, didn't know any of that at first. For 2 full years, the house was just a house. Quiet, normal, nothing strange. Then the 3rd year began. It started small. Tyler was lying in bed one night, somewhere past midnight, when he heard it, a sound coming from outside. From the direction of the shallow pond behind the western wall of the property. A baby crying. He sat up, listened. The sound faded. He told himself it was a cat, maybe a neighbor's baby. He went back to sleep, but it came back the next night, and the night after that. Not always a baby, sometimes a dog whimpering, sometimes a low rhythmic wail that didn't sound like any animal Tyler could name. His mother heard it, his siblings heard it, the neighbors upstairs next door heard nothing, only this family. The house had 5 rooms. One of them, the one at the far end of the 2nd floor hallway, had been kept locked since they moved in. No one had ever given them a key. The property manager said it was a storage room. One night, Tyler pressed his ear against that door. He heard whispers. Not loud enough to make out words, just the soft, steady movement of voices like 2 people talking in the dark. He stepped back. He didn't tell his mother. Then the bathroom on the 2nd floor started losing its light. The first bulb burned out after 3 days. They replaced it. That one lasted 4 days, then 2, then 1. In the span of a single month, they went through 10 light bulbs in that one bathroom. They called an electrician. He checked every wire, every connection, every inch of the circuit. He found nothing wrong. They stopped replacing the bulbs. From that point on, that bathroom was used only in daylight. Tyler's mother, her name for this story is Carol, was not a woman who scared easily. She prayed every morning. She fasted twice a week. She was, by every account, a woman of deep faith and steady nerves. When Tyler told her about the whispering, she listened carefully and told him not to worry. When the lights kept dying, she called the electrician herself. When the sounds came from outside at night, she went to the window, looked out, saw nothing, and went back to bed. She was not afraid. Not yet. It was around this time that they learned the truth about the 2nd floor bathroom, the one with the dead lights. A neighbor who had lived in the building for over a decade pulled Carol aside one afternoon, quietly, carefully. She told her that some years back, before any of the current tenants had arrived, a young woman who worked as a housekeeper in that apartment had taken her own life. In that bathroom, the caretaker, when confronted, confirmed it. He apologized. He said he thought it was better not to mention it. He had been wrong. Carol did not pack up and leave. She wanted to understand the house. She wanted to know what it was holding. A few weeks later, Tyler fell asleep in the middle of the afternoon. He was lying on his bed, and the sleep came fast, the kind that drops over you without warning. In the dream, and Tyler will tell you it did not feel like a dream, he saw himself sitting on the same bed, in the same room. The door opened. A boy walked in, 7, maybe 8 years old, small frame, moving slowly, like he had all the time in the world. His skin was the color of deep shadow, not dark brown, not black in any natural sense. It was the kind of darkness that doesn't reflect light. The boy stopped at the foot of the bed. He looked at Tyler with wide, unblinking eyes, and then he spoke. "Leave this house. Take your mother. Take your brothers and sisters. If you stay, something will happen that cannot be undone." Then he was gone. Tyler didn't drift back to sleep. He was on his feet before he had time to think, heart pounding, hands shaking. He found his mother in the kitchen and told her everything. She held his hands, looked at his face, and said calmly, "It's all right. You're safe." The next day was Tyler's birthday. In the late afternoon, exactly the time Tyler had been asleep the day before, Carol was in the hallway when her foot slipped on the polished floor. She fell hard. The fracture was in her hip. She spent the next 4 months in bed. The family still did not leave. 3 months after Carol's fall, the house was robbed. Armed men, late at night. They moved through the first floor and into the second floor units. They found little of value. The family didn't have much. But before they left, something strange happened. One of the men, older, heavy-set, with a scar along his jaw, stopped at the doorway of Carol's room. She was sitting up in bed, watching him. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "You should leave this house. All of you. I'm telling you this honestly. Something is wrong here. You won't be safe if you stay." Carol stared at him. He couldn't explain why. He just turned and walked out. Armed robbers, warning them to leave. That was enough. They began packing that week. 2 days before the moving truck arrived, Carol was sitting alone in her bedroom, very still, eyes closed. She said later that she wasn't sleeping. She was somewhere between rest and awareness, the way you sometimes get in the early hours of the morning. And she saw something. In the corner of the room, the same corner where the wall met the floor, she saw a pit, not deep at first, just a crack in the surface of things, then deeper, then very deep. At the bottom of the pit, side by side, face up, 2 stone figures, human-shaped, old beyond measuring, their surfaces dark and worn. She opened her eyes. The room was normal. The floor was solid. They took their things, loaded the truck, and drove away. Tyler says he never went back, not even to drive past it. Some houses, he says, are not meant to be understood. They're meant to be left. There are things that happen to us that we don't tell people right away, sometimes for years, sometimes forever. Eric held on to this story for a long time before he sent it to us. He was in dental school when it happened. His aunt lived in an old apartment building in Glenwood, 5 floors, high ceilings, long hallways with mosaic tile floors that clicked under your shoes with every step. The building had history. On the top floor, years before Eric's family arrived, a boy had lived with his parents. An energetic kid, always running, always jumping. One afternoon he was alone in the apartment. He climbed on his bed, reached up for the ceiling fan just to grab it, the way kids do, and his hand caught the spinning blade. The cut was deep. By the time anyone found him, it was too late. After that, tenants came and went. Some lasted a few months, some less. None of them ever said exactly why they left. They just stopped renewing their leases. Eventually, Eric's cousin Marcus and his mother moved into the top floor unit. It was a large apartment, 3,000 square feet, and it was the only unit on that floor. Marcus's mother got it cheaply. She thought she was lucky. She was not. Eric and Marcus were the same age, only 2 months apart. A few evenings a week, Eric would come over and the two of them would practice karate on the wide balcony at the back of the apartment. Their instructor came 3 times a week. The rest of the time, they trained on their own. It was on one of those evenings, a Tuesday, around 7 o'clock, that it first happened to Eric. He had walked from the balcony to the kitchen for water. The hallway connecting them was long and poorly lit, a single 60-watt bulb hanging in the center, cast in a weak yellow cone of light in either direction, leaving the rest in shadow. He got his water. He turned around. He started walking back. Halfway down the hall, he heard it, a second set of footsteps. On mosaic tile, old, slightly uneven mosaic tile, footsteps make a very specific sound, a soft click and scrape. When Eric walked, he heard his own clicks and scrapes. Now he was hearing someone else's. Same pace, same rhythm, right behind him. He did not stop walking. He did not look back. He walked to the balcony, sat down, picked up where he had left off in practice, and said nothing to Marcus. He told himself it was the building settling. He told himself it was an echo. He told himself it was nothing. He mostly believed it. But a few weeks later, Marcus told him something. Their instructor had moved their sessions to a different location. Without explanation, Eric's father had simply arranged for them to train somewhere else. Marcus wanted to know if Eric had any idea why. Eric asked around. Eventually, he sat down with Marcus alone and said, quietly, that he'd heard something in the hallway. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My mom doesn't let me go upstairs alone after dark. Every evening, Marcus's mother would take him up to the apartment herself. In the morning, she would take him back down. She never said why. She never explained. She just made sure he was never alone up there after sunset. Until the night she stayed late at the office." Marcus needed a textbook he had left upstairs. He had an exam the next morning. He took the key, told his grandmother he'd be right back, and went up alone. He found the book. He was maybe 30 seconds in the apartment total, and then the power went out. The entire building went dark. Marcus stood in the hallway of the top-floor apartment, alone, in complete blackness. He remembered the candles. His mother kept them in the kitchen drawer. He felt his way along the wall, found the drawer, found the candle, found a matchbook beside it. He struck a match, lit the candle, walked into the hallway. The flame went out. He lit it again. Out. Again. Out. No wind. No draft. The windows were closed. He felt it. The third time the flame died, a soft, deliberate breath against his hand. Not a gust, not air conditioning, someone exhaling. Marcus decided he didn't need the candle. He would walk in the dark. He knew the layout. He knew where the front door was. He would just walk. He took 1 step, 2 steps, then footsteps. Behind him, he stopped. They stopped. He walked. They walked. He ran. They ran. He made it to his mother's room at the end of the hall, slammed the door, pressed his back against it, stood there in the dark, breathing hard, too afraid to move. Then a sound, soft, almost polite, at the door. A knock, and then the door swung open. Marcus dove under the blanket on his mother's bed. He lay completely still. Through a gap at the edge of the blanket, he could see the doorway, a glow, white, faint, not quite the shape of anything, floating. For almost 2 minutes he could hear it moving around the room, slow, deliberate circles, around the bed, around him. Marcus made a decision. He pulled back the blanket, swung his legs to the floor, and ran, straight at the doorway, straight through the light. He felt it as he passed through, cold, still, like stepping through fog that has weight. He didn't stop. Down the hall, through the front door, down the stairs, and into his grandmother's arms on the landing below. She had heard him coming. She caught him before he hit the floor. They waited together on the stairs until Marcus's mother came home. Then the three of them went up together, turned on every light in every room, and packed up everything that mattered. The top floor was locked that night. It was never reopened. Marcus moved downstairs permanently. Eric never went back to the building, but Eric says he still thinks about the hallway sometimes. About that Tuesday evening when he walked back from the kitchen with a glass of water, listening to 2 sets of footsteps on old mosaic tile, his own, and one that had no reason to be there. This story was sent to us by a man named Daniel. He never witnessed any of it himself, but he grew up watching the man who did. His grandfather, Henry, was a fisherman, spent his whole life beside the river that ran through the floodplains east of Rutherford County. He knew that river the way other men know their own faces, every bend, every shallow, every place where the current changed without warning. He was not superstitious. He was practical, experienced, and brave in the way that men who work at night on dark water have to be brave. He didn't believe in things he couldn't see until he saw one. A few miles downstream from the village was a place the local fishermen called the Fork, a point where 2 branches of the river converged into one. The water there was different, darker, slower on the surface but violent beneath. Boats that tried to cross it were pushed sideways by currents that didn't follow any logic. Nets dropped into the fork came back shredded or not at all. No one had ever successfully measured the depth of the water at the fork. People had died there. Not many and not recently, but everyone knew. Henry and his younger brother, whose name Daniel tells us was Raymond, went out one night in late autumn. Moonless sky, the kind of dark that sits on top of you. Their mother, a small woman with sharp eyes who had lived beside that river her entire life, told them not to go. She had a feeling, she said. She had been right before. They went anyway. They fished for hours, moving slowly downstream. By 3:30 in the morning, they had drifted close to the fork without quite realizing it. Henry was holding the lantern. Raymond was watching the water. Then Raymond pointed. Just below the surface, maybe 2.5 feet down, visible in the lantern light, something enormous was lying still in the water. A catfish, at least 6 feet long, motionless the way big fish sometimes go still when they feel the light. Henry handed the lantern to Raymond and raised his spear. He took aim. He threw. The spear hit water. The fish was gone, very slow in its place, floating just beneath the surface, a form wrapped in white cloth, not driftwood, not debris, a body. Henry and Raymond both saw it at exactly the same moment. They did not speak. They did not wait to see more. Raymond ran left along the bank. Henry ran right. Behind them, both of them heard it, a sound. A wet, dragging sound like something pulling itself out of the water. Neither of them looked back. Henry made it home just before dawn. He was barely conscious when he crossed the threshold of their mother's house. He collapsed in the yard. His mother found him there at first light. Raymond did not come home. The family searched all day, the riverbank, the reeds, the roads between the fork and the village. Nothing. The next morning, 30 hours after the brothers had gone out, a neighbor found something in a dry ditch roughly 15 feet from the water's edge, not far from the fork itself. Raymond, face down in the mud, alone. When they turned him over, long scratch marks covered his face and neck. His skin was cold in a way that didn't match the temperature of the air. His body carried a smell, not decomposition, not exactly, but something close to it. Something like the bottom of very old, very deep water. His eyes were open, staring straight up at nothing. The family cleaned his body before burial, as was their custom. Those who helped said that as they washed him, a thin yellow fluid seeped from the scratch marks. They didn't speak about it afterward. Henry was not the same after that night. He continued to fish. He had no other livelihood, but he never went near the fork again. He took the long routes, the shallow routes, the ones the younger men called cowardly. He didn't care, and every few weeks, sometimes more often, when the weather changed or when the nights got very quiet, he would wake up in the dark and start calling Raymond's name, not shouting, not screaming, just saying it softly, over and over. Raymond, 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 like he was waiting for an answer that would never come. Henry died 6 months before Daniel sent us this story. Daniel says that in the last 2 weeks of his life, when Henry could barely speak, he was still waking in the night, still calling the name. Daniel says he doesn't know what his grandfather saw at the fork that night. He doesn't know what took Raymond or where or why it left Henry standing. He just knows that his grandfather carried it every single day of his life for over 60 years. Whatever was in that water, it let one brother go home, but it never let him go. 3 stories, 3 nights. If you've made it to the end, thank you. I mean that. It takes something to sit with these. If something like this has happened to you, something you haven't told anyone, something you're still trying to make sense of, send it to us. We read everything. Until next time, watch what's behind you.